All right. And so the things that this represents, okay? So this represents male pedophile witches. So let me tell you essentially what that is. Essentially, they'll be macho and OCD, and then they'll be sinister. And so I do be women's bitch, and then I'm not OCD at all. And then I do essentially the opposite of sinister. Right? So my theoretical block is man. But, well, I guess the clear ones is wizard. It would be like these not having lines in it. That's a wizard block, basically. So, let me tell you what these people do. These are satanic male witches. And that they essentially spend their year doing things to get to essentially the satanic ritual's zero spot, which is to rape and kill a child. And that is where then they get to be the satanic leader for the next year. So the whole idea is that the things that they do, essentially, they balance off of people. So it's like, if I looked at my son today or something, then if they whacked off the Mormon cue or something, they might have seen his face or something. Then that fills in one of these blocks. That means they have to take a step back, basically. And then if they like make too many bitch block balance errors throughout the year, then they have to take steps all the way back. And then they aren't able to be at the exact leadership moment. And so the thing is that some people, there's two kind of theoretical reasons for them doing this. Some will be like obsessed with doing this stuff. They'll like raping and killing the children in like a psychotic way. And then other ones will be attempting to be the leaders. And then they'll be tense because essentially the leader spot is the one that gets everything paid. It also covers up all the year's blackmails. And so it becomes where they are intently doing this stuff. Some people do it for both reasons. They'll be doing this stuff trying to get to this moment to be the leader. I mean, that's what everybody chases. They chase being the leader. And then it essentially pays, it's like the stuff that pays for the house, mortgage, and a lease, and groceries, and you get credit cards, and basically pays for everything in their life. And so the further they get back, essentially they can theoretically not even have to work and shit. So essentially, now then, in some bigger ones, like one in LA or something like that, then they would potentially get to waltz in and live lavishly for the year and stuff like that, and they'd get to go to parties and stuff. And essentially what this entails is they find somebody to do the opposite of. So it's like, say I ate pork today, then they won't eat pork today. Then that would move them up. And then say I didn't take a shower today yet, and then they took a shower today, so then that would move them up. Okay, so this is the type of stuff. And then the person that they bitch block off of, in this theoretical example, if I take a shower today, then they lose their bitch block and they move back. And so that's they do these things in extreme OCD kind of ways. And that essentially the people that talk about bitch moves and shit. Basically, they're kind of doing that. That's where they like bitch the person around, bitch block his brain, make him do this so I can do this. That's kind of how they'll be, okay? And that has to do with the previous horrible thing in their life that they also want to live lavishly and shit. So that's why they get up to that. But see, these people that do that, essentially, they're the ones that get turned into schizos over the course of the year. So by the end of the year, they're usually like schizophrenic after a year after doing that. They also call it enchantment. And so that's kind of like where the people that like to do weird psycho-y Satan kitty sex, this is like what their whole life sometimes is built around doing everything that gets them up to the 0 time. And so that's essentially all they're really doing that stuff for. And so that is essentially where most of these people, like I say, they've done something super horrible already. The reason that they can't really be, reason that no therapy is really fixed is because this is like life or death, basically, when it comes to them. Because if a lot of times if they don't get close enough, then they won't. The people down here basically have exposure of their blackmails, the horrible ones, and that those people, they basically, normally they get killed or they get thrown into prison, and that it gets exposed. And so they're always striving to be up in these ranges. A lot of this stuff is like they find somebody to bitch move off of. So like this person ate meat, not gonna eat meat or something. And then there's also a little smaller blackmail throughout the year, pedophilia. They basically do touches and they fuck high school kids and shit like that. Basically. And so then they also rape kids and stuff. But this is the satanic moment that builds the leadership position for the year. And so then they get schizoed out. They do. They get schizoed out. Because essentially, the reality is that Satan, the devil or whatever, is theoretically the leader. Basically. And so that is where their punishment for trying to take Satan's theoretical position pushes them, they get schizoed out for that. But that basically they become, the first part of the year, they'll be like tech psycho on top of the fucking world. It's tech psychos. They do this too. And then there's cop gang people that kind of do this. And you see what, oh yeah, there's a real correlation with that. A lot of those people, the ones that do this stuff, to do this stuff, you have to think in OCD kind of a way, meticulous OCD ways. You really do. And so most of them are on like some sort of hacker tape that has them doing this stuff. And the hacker tape, I mean, theoretically they're just trying to get up close enough, and that the hacker tape essentially, if they follow along with what it says, pretty much gets them up in some sort of range. And if they're smart enough to, well, they're not necessarily smart, but they're like, you kind of have to caveat that stuff a little bit to get up there. And see, that is where this stuff is exactly why their psyche is like that. And then it becomes like a huge, like, it's kind of like, it's like people that do chess, I guess. They become obsessed with the game and it kind of takes over their, like searching for Bobby Fischer's kind of people, that kind of stuff. They're not smart like those people, but it becomes like a game, like a chess game to them. And they become obsessed, and that the pursuit of it, it's kind of like people that play chess as a real chess master or whatever. A lot of times those people start to break down psychologically from their OCD obsession about the game. And so it's a similar issue with them. And so it's one of the things that breaks their psyche down a little bit. And so if they'll become so obsessed about it, because in ways there's also like a massive adrenaline rush that they get out of doing that stuff. And that's the stuff that really causes them to have like a really twisted mind. It does. And so you see that in ways some of these cops, they kind of seem like this, right? And that most of them like hate women. See, they'll be macho, they'll be OCD, and they'll be like an asshole, sinister kind of person that fucks with a witch in weird psychological ways, kind of. Basically, they'll hate women. See, pedophiles like little kids. And so that's essentially over time doing all this shit, being like this. This is the stuff that builds this in their mind. And then the stuff about bitch move here, bitch move there, that stuff builds their logic to be always looking for that type of stuff. Then that breaks down the philosophy aspects to their psyche. Then they start to see diametrics everywhere. That stuff twists their mind all the time. See, after a while of doing this stuff, it becomes very difficult for them to not view the world and to be thinking about the bitch moves. Because years of doing that type of stuff, it's just like, they'll be like, it's like in Pi or something, like the movie Pi. Like that person, he was seeing like pi code and everything, like that stuff. Okay? Similar kind of theoretical condition. Seeing the signs behind the signs and the codes behind the codes. See, this is like where I know how to find codes, but if it becomes too much effort, then I just won't bother. Pretty much. I don't necessarily believe in doing that type of strenuous, like, OCD kind of shit. See, if it doesn't come naturally or easily in an intellectual way, then I usually focus on that stuff. And this is where I know exactly what zero-time pedo munchers do. See, as a little boy, I would do this stuff, and that I would work my way up to a prairie where there would be no satanic ritual, because I would figure out the right things to do. Then this type of event wouldn't happen. And so that is where, that is Well, doing the prairie ride is actually pretty easy if you know how to do it. Yeah, that's how it is. That's what it is. And so I always knew how to do that correctly. And so I always knew where everybody was supposed to stand. It's actually a lot simpler than people would realize. But see, this stuff is extensive. This stuff is blackmailing. This stuff, what they do is Satanism. And what I theoretically was doing is angelism, basically. That I mean, that's kind of the difference. And so the angelism stuff is actually more easier. But see, they have part of doing this has them with their theories on how to do a prairie also, because their theories include errors that then the little children have to be raped for the errors, and that then they're all pedophiles, and they're always like trying to rape kids anyways. Okay, so that is where they purposefully make mistakes at that stuff. But it's also where it becomes where there is a true like way to do it, but people only get a certain amount of information, and then they're supposed to see what they have. It comes on a basic theoretics, and that it has to do with placements, like does it go on the left? Does the log go in front? That kind of stuff. And so they'll have like a theoretical reasoning for placing that stuff. But in the end, there's only like one way to do it correctly, and it has an intuitive idea to it that somebody like me would understand, because you know what? When it comes to the numbers and association stuff, I know exactly why that stuff specifically is placed in specific ways. And so that's kind of like where I'm the kind of person that doesn't want any of this stuff to happen. And that's where I come from, a different position. Okay, everybody else that does that stuff essentially doesn't necessarily understand the difference between Satanism and angelism. See, angelism is about like not having that. It's about a wizard coming in and going, nope, here under the prairie, they're gonna have to do this stuff. That's what a wizard's for. And so, state male pedophile witches, they like to do prairie also. That they have their own male pedophile Satanist theoretics to that stuff, and I have the wizard theoretics to that stuff. And so in the end, you know, the only people that stuff would ever matter for are like SRA victims that don't have any blackmails.